Good morning, everybody. And let me start by first thanking the Retail Magazine and Franchise India for giving me this opportunity to be here at the inaugural day of this two-day conference. I really want to thank this organization for being so committed to Indian retail. And every year, I've observed a lot of events and opportunities for retailers and other vendors, etc., to come together under the banner of Franchise India and share views and exchange ideas. And I think it's very important from a retail industry standpoint that we continue with this whole initiative, because it's still a relatively new industry in India, and I think it's important that we exchange ideas and what we've learned so that each one of us can move forward. Ritu, in her opening remarks, she talked about, this is the world of accidental things happening in India, at least. She talked about somebody who accidentally got into retail. I just want to speak for myself. I did not accidentally get into retail. I chose to get into retail. I wasn't a retailer, but my family is a family of retailers for several generations. And for various reasons, my father decided to take up a government assignment, and he was a government servant. And I grew up to be an engineer and then started my career with Unilever and so on. But it was something I was always fascinated with, and I wanted to get back into retail. So 8 years ago, when I got an opportunity, I used to live in China at that point in time, to work for Walmart. I couldn't say no, because in what I think is my last lap of my professional career, I wanted to get back to my roots. And it's been about 8 years for me. It's been a very interesting journey, most of it in India. But I've learned a lot about international retail, observed companies like Walmart at close quarters, and also now running a vibrant retail organization in India. So what I intend to do is to really share with you over the next 10 or 15 minutes, very quickly, some of my insights into what I've learned. Once again, going back to the inaugural address by Ritu, I belong to a generation which is 37 plus. And therefore, most of my comments will relate to brick and real retail as we know it, as I grew up with. I'm not so conversant with e-commerce. I do observe it from the outside, and I know there's a lot of hype about e-commerce right now. So every day you open the papers, there's a lot of talk about new e-commerce players and what they are doing, and how maybe entire retailing will move to e-commerce over the next 1 or 2 decades. I can only say that, when I came back to India 8 years ago, I saw the same thing about, brick and mortar retail. Everybody was so hyped up about brick and mortar retail and how it's going to just take over the entire landscape of mom and pop stores, and how, all the kirana stores will completely be out of job and out of profession. But having lived through this movie for last 8 years, I don't think even 2% of that has happened. And more importantly, I don't think anything like that is going to happen. So I think sometimes we tend to be, as a country, ahead of ourselves in terms of our projections and what we think is going to happen. Change happens, and it should happen, and it's good, but it happens at a pace which the country and the consumers and the economy can digest. And I do believe that change will happen, but at a much slower pace than what people are currently projecting. So with that, let me start with my first slide, if I may please, which is about how I have seen retail evolve and what I think about it. So I don't want to get into too much numbers. I think there are people in this room and outside this room who can probably give you much more about the industry and so on. But whichever way you cut it, retail is a very, very large industry in India. It accounts for almost $500 billion of sales and so on. So we are really, all of us trying to swim in an ocean. And when you're doing that, you don't need to worry about how far I can go. I think the important thing is how much capacity do I have. And food and grocery is and will continue to be, no matter what people say, I think the very large chunk of retail, at least in the next 2 decades. The other important thing is that whichever way you cut it, modern trade is growing at 2-3 times the pace of the mom and pop or the kirana stores, and will become a sizable portion of retailing in India over the next couple of decades. To me, I think the real change I have seen in the last 8 years in India is the acceptance of modern retail by consumers, especially in the area of food and grocery. And I still remember that 7 years ago when Bharti Retail opened its first, or 6 years ago, opened its first outlet in Ludhiana, which was a small Easyday store, there were a lot of consumers or potential consumers who stood outside the store very curiously looking at this, what they thought was a glitzy store, but didn't want to shop inside because they thought that it'll be expensive and it was not designed for them and it was only designed for the high-end consumer and so on and so forth. When I travel to Punjab these days and look at some of my stores and competitive stores, I notice two things. I notice okay, thank you. I noticed two things. I noticed that our stores are now much more embraced by not only SECA consumers, but B and C and even D consumers at times. And they have started recognizing that they can shop there for their monthly baskets, for their top-ups, for their weekly baskets, etc. But also, I think the stores nearby, the kiranas nearby have modernized. So the gap between what an Easyday used to be and what a kirana store used to be in a market has kind of significantly reduced. And more consumers are shopping in modern trade and accepting modern trade as a serious food and grocery player. And I think that's a very important change I have seen. The second thing is that, modern retail, when we talk about penetration of modern retail being still very low in India, it's right. But there are certain categories which are shopped now a lot at modern trade. If you look at footwear, if you look at apparel, some of those things, invariably, if you look at urban India, almost 50 to 60% of the shopping in apparel and footwear and so on is being done now in modern retail. And also, if you look at rural India, which accounts for about 1 billion people, those billion people do not have access to modern retail. So really, modern retail currently is only penetrated in urban India, and if I may say so, largely in 100 about towns. So in those towns, modern retail accounts for more than 10 or 15% of what the total retail is. So as modern retail starts to penetrate deeper and deeper into the country, I believe the adoption and the contribution of modern retail will increase. Moving on to my next slide, I think, what is in it for consumers? And this is based on, a lot of feedback we've got from consumers, from our suppliers, and so on and so forth. So basically, I think as consumers shop modern retail, they realize they can get a lot of price offs. They can get great products at low prices. So it's becoming a place where people are beginning to recognize that many modern retailers are actually offering great value to customers in terms of price offs, in terms of offers, in terms of freebies, in terms of promotions. They are also seeing it as a great place to switch brands because competitive brands are available. Brands which are not able to advertise or distribute are available, and they can then make choices not just based on what they see on television, but based on prices, based on product attributes, and based on availability. And that's a big thing. This offers great choice, therefore, for customers, especially in these high inflation times and times when consumers are really stretched in terms of the money they have to spend. I think it gives them a great opportunity to trade to products and brands which would charge them less. And also, the other thing about urban customers I'm talking about is the ability for them to save time and energy. And it's not just save time as in save time on shopping, but save time in terms of how far they have to go from their home, the multiple shopping trips they have to take, the multiple times they have to go out of their homes to get what they need in their home. And I think they're beginning to see how modern trade can help solve some of those problems. On the manufacturing side, I think, manufacturers, large manufacturers, small manufacturers who are very wary of large retailers are beginning to see some real benefits to them. Speed to market is one of those. So today, if a manufacturer wants to launch a new product in a new category because there's new competition or they've got a great hot idea, they want to get to the consumers, they can literally within a matter of days get that product on the shelf, which was never possible with the traditional trade. Better display of products, especially in those areas, where they are either advertising, heavily and they want to get the product on the shelf immediately, or areas or niche products where they don't want to advertise because advertising costs are going up, but they want to display the product in similar categories where that particular product has been launched. So it's a great way to get niche products onto the shelf without having to spend too much money on advertising and promotion. And finally, there is a new category of products which is emerging, which is chilled and refrigerated and frozen, which never really existed because there was no distribution for those products. And clearly those products are now becoming available and consumers are experimenting and consumers are trying and they are embracing, and that's opening up a host of new opportunities for manufacturers to service customers. On the other side, when we really look at modern trade, it's a great environment to do what we call sampling, or we call explaining benefits of products in an environment which was otherwise not possible with the traditional trade. And also, it's a great place to shop. It's a great environment. If I may use the word, it really makes shopping easy and it makes shopping rewarding. So modern trade consumers love the idea over a period of time to be able to shop in an environment where they can easily shop. The products are there, the prices are there, they can pick up what they want, they don't need to ask anybody. And then it's also rewarding from the point of view of either availability or price or promotion or new products. So that's, in our experience, what modern trade is bringing, and what I think more and more consumers will, as they experience modern trade, will embrace over in the next 5 to 10 years. Here is some examples of products which, I believe have been really built in the last 5 years and wouldn't have been possible without modern trade in our country. Frozen, ready-to-fry products, I talked about it. The sheer availability of refrigeration and cooling and chilling and so on has made some of these products available. McCain is one of the companies which has really embraced this, and the kind of growth which people like companies like this are seeing as a result of modern trade is phenomenal. We've got this whole area of what we call internally candies and cookies, but it's all kinds of chocolates and all kinds of sweets and so on and so forth, which have, and Lotto Pie is one of those, but, there are several brands, which have Kinder Joy is one product, Ferrero Rocher chocolates is another product. It's very interesting that in most of our stores over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen that at festivals like Rakhi or Diwali or something like that, chocolates and cookies are now replacing traditional Indian mithai as gifts, which people take to other people's home or gift them at the time of such an occasion. So all this would not have been possible, I think, without modern trade. Olive oil, a category which really was very small, almost niche down to using at the time of a baby massage or a spa in some areas, is now becoming a mainstay cooking medium in many homes and growing very rapidly, because the benefits and availability of cooking oil in the cooking category of olive oil is now available to, and a lot of olive oil manufacturers are not advertising. They're just doing it through the medium and distribution of modern trade. And finally, some niche categories which are emerging, like organic foods, imported products, and so on. So I do believe that modern trade is playing a significant role in getting a lot of these products available at a very reasonable, market entry costs and distribution to a lot of these new manufacturers. And it's not just product. I think the benefits to consumers which other trade channels are not able to offer is also through the use of credit cards and the increasing penetration of credit cards. through coupons like Sodexo coupons, which a lot of people utilize to buy food and grocery, through quick EMIs, not only on electronics, which may be available in a specialized electronics store, but also on credit cards. These days, if you spend more than 3,000, 5,000 rupees on a credit card in a modern trade store, you'll quickly get an EMI on that if you want it. And cashback and other offers and mobile money and Airtel money and those kind of opportunities, which I think are going to become bigger and bigger as we go forward. So it has really become very much more convenient from a financial services perspective for consumers to shop at modern trade. And I don't want to talk a lot about e-commerce. I'm not the expert on e-commerce, but certainly in certain product categories, e-commerce has a great opportunity in this country to be able to make shopping easy for customers. Now, obviously, it's a big industry, and I've always said that retail is actually, in retail, we don't make any products. We are basically a network of industries. So we take a lot of, we take manufacturers on one end, we take the consumers on the other end, and we try and match the two. We take real estate companies on one end and IT companies on the other hand, and try and match what they have to offer in order to enable products and services to move from one place to the other and make it easy, make it convenient, make it cheap for customers to be able to buy. So retail is all about being a network of various industries and not only manufacturing but service industries. And government, of course, plays a significant role in that because this is still a very nascent industry and requires lots of policy changes and management for it to grow. So let's start with investors, and I have a colleague here from JM Financial who's going to talk about their perspective, I'm sure, on retail. But the one thing about retail, at least in my experience, is it requires a lot of capital, but more importantly, it requires patient capital and long-term capital. If you want to make a quick buck in retail, that doesn't happen. It's an industry which takes 5, 7, 10 years to start showing decent returns on an ROI on its invested capital. So it's a marathon industry, and unless long-term good patient capital backs it, it's not going to be able to survive or grow. From a government perspective, it's very important that there are certain important legislations which get addressed. And I don't want to talk a lot about FDI and retail. There's been a lot of talk about that. We have finally opened it, or the Congress government opened it. The policy has got its own flaws and issues and may need refining. The opposition has a very strong point of view on that. Which way this will evolve, I don't know. But I think there is no, my own point of view is any capital for a country like India should be welcome. And there is no reason why we should not be welcoming with open arms foreign direct investment in retail. But I think if there is one legislation I would like the government to do and act upon immediately, it is the GST. And I think that will solve a lot of problems on the supply side for retail and reduce the cost of supply. And I think that is a very important piece of legislation we've been discussing for the last 10 years, which I think needs to see the light of the day. The government should also realize that organized retail will lead to better revenue compliance and better taxation and better revenue therefore for the government. So in many ways, the government will be a major beneficiary if they were to help modern retail take roots. Real estate, it's a very complicated and complex issue as far as brick and mortar retail is concerned. All I'd like to say is that we haven't even scratched the surface on what I would say mixed developments. Here in Gurgaon itself, we've got lots of condominiums coming up, but most of those condominiums have nowhere to go and shop. So there are lots of opportunities, I think, for retail, for real estate companies to think about convenience of shopping for the condominiums they are making. And lots of great ideas for do that, which would be win-win for retailers as well as for real estate company. Small and medium manufacturers. I think these will be the biggest gainers of change in modern retail. because largely it gets them access to a lot of regional suppliers to national supply chains. It gives them access to launch their products without a lot of marketing and muscle and effort. And I think they should embrace modern retail, which they are, many of them are, and there are lots of brands like Ching's and so on, which have built a business model based and a brand based on modern retail. And I'll really urge, a lot of small and medium suppliers to look at modern retail as a serious way to play, launch products and grow. And people, this is a very, very heavy employment sector. Employs large number of people. The great thing is that it doesn't employ a lot of MBAs. It actually employs a lot of people who are just passing out of high school. And that is what India needs. India needs jobs for youth, starting jobs for youth who have not had the privilege to go to college or don't have the economic resources to go to college, but do want to have a career and do want to grow and do want to study and complete their studies while they are still earning. It is also a great industry for women. We've got a program at Bharti Retail where we employ 30-35% women on shop floor, many of whom are actually housewives living within 1 kilometer radius of the store. And they have flexi hours from 10 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When their kids are gone, their husbands are gone to work, and they have free time, they come and work, and then they go back just before the kids come back home or the husband comes back home. And this is a great way to provide employment to women in a habitat in which they are comfortable to work. Last but not the least, I'm a great believer on the impact, and I've seen this personally, it'll have on the farming community. 60-65% of India is still engaged with farming, and I think a strong organized retail is going to have a significant impact on the farming community by giving direct access to farmers. It's not that farmers are going to bring their products to retail stores and sell, but it will give them visibility to the entire supply chain in terms of, the tomatoes I grow or harvested this morning, at what price are they selling it this evening in the store? What kinds are selling, varieties, new fruits, off-season products, cold chain, so on and so forth. So I think it'll take time. It's not going to be easy. This is a very, very, complex and complicated issue. But, I think the biggest gainer is going to be the farmer if and when this whole thing starts to. The other big opportunity on the farming side, I think, is exports. India with such huge farming and farming base is such a small exporter of produce, that it is, we are really leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. But farmers have to learn to grow international quality products and have a supply chain which gives them access internationally, and intermediary which gives them international access. And that is what is missing in India today. So I believe, as modern trade starts to take root in India, it'll be a big beneficiary will be agriculture in India. So just to sum it up, I think, in the next 5 years, I really see this continuing to happen. I think the biggest, catalyst of all this is the fact that the consumers are increasingly becoming comfortable shopping in modern trade, seeing it as a serious place where they can shop, get value, get products, get good service, and an environment under one roof where they can shop. And that is, I think, the biggest catalyst of all this. So it's a great win for the customer. As I said, it'll be a great win for the farmer or the agriculture industry. The manufacturing and the SMEs, etc., provides them great access, without having to spend huge amounts of money on advertising, including niche products, and also, for the industry as such, as it grows and takes root. The important thing is we are sitting currently at the worst time of our economic performance in the last 1 or 2 decades. And things do look very tough from a retailer's perspective, from an investor's perspective, from a manufacturer's perspective, even from an employee's perspective. But I do believe this is going to change over the next 1 or 2 years. And I think as the economic cycle changes, modern trade and modern retail is going to be one of those industries which will emerge very strong and very relevant with high growths and good returns on shareholder investment over the next 5 to 10 years. Thanks a lot.